So you know what this shows me? God is saying here that if you don't do this, you're stingy. What's up, geeks? It's your guy Q here, aka JGTV, and I'm back with another one, guys. And today I want to bring you guys a segment that I enjoy talking about, and it is called Conversations with a Friend. I don't always talk about it on this channel, but it is something I started, I would say, almost a year ago now, and it really is just random conversations I end up having with people, whether I am at work or just at church or just in a random spot, not so much in a coffee shop nowadays, but it's just random conversations I have with people, and I usually end up being able to talk to people about God in some way, shape, or form within that conversation, right? So this conversation today, we're going to be talking about someone that I know pretty closely. It's more like a professional relationship. So we're going to call this guy Mark for just lack of better name, just because we're not going to reveal his name right now. But before we get started, you guys be safe, take care of yourselves, and wear your mask, guys. I know they suck, but hey, we gotta do what we gotta do. So wear your mask, be safe. Now, as far as Mark goes, let's start this off. One day, Mark and I were having a conversation. Now, I enjoy talking to this person. They do have a slightly different perspective of money than I do, but that doesn't mean that we can't talk. We can't have conversations, right? So me and Mark, we talk all the time. So one day, we were having a conversation, and I was kind of getting to know Mark's perspective about money based on a different interaction we had prior. So sometimes he may say things like, it doesn't matter where your tithes go, meaning like God doesn't really care if you pay your 10% to the church or if you pay it to a charity or a children's fund, as long as you're giving the 10% and you're giving, right? He might say things like, you can give more to things that you're passionate about, right? So if there's something specific, like maybe a specific fund or a charity that you are super passionate about, maybe like healing children of cancer or healing blindness in adolescent children, like you might give a lot more to that charity than you may even do to tithing, right? And another thing I might hear him say from time to time is, well, when I die, my money's going to charity. My wife and I have already spoke about that. Now, God cares about all of these things that I've listed, but today I want to really focus in on number 3, which is when I die, my money's going to charity. Now, as far as number 1 and 2, right? Saying things like, it doesn't matter to God where your tithes go. That's not true. But today, that's not going to be the focus of today's video, right? But that is something that I can touch on, because I have had people reach out to me and say, hey, can you talk about tithing and where that stands as far as the modern day church and things like that? Great topic, so I really might touch on that. And as far as the second one goes, you can give more to things you're passionate about. Not necessarily true, and that's something that I can touch on as well with the tithing video. But like I said, today, guys, we're going to focus on number 3, which is when I die, my money's going to charity. And the in quote or parentheses would be of that would be me and my wife have already talked about this. Now, the logic behind this is that A lot of we hear a lot of people who are well off, at least I do personally hear a lot of my friends or people I know who are well off say, well, I don't want to leave my children a whole bunch of money when I die, because then they're just going to be spoiled and they're not going to understand what it is to work hard to gain money. I'm not going to argue with that perspective. I'm just going to say God doesn't think like that. All right, here we go, guys. So when me and Mark were having this talk, I kind of challenged him a little bit on this, right? I kind of said, what is your reason that you don't want to do this? And he goes, well, I want my child to be able to know, that working hard for money is a good thing and being diligent with your money is a good thing. These are not horrible or bad principles to teach our children. I just don't think Mark really understood the way God thinks about leaving an inheritance for your children. So I think some of you guys know where I'm going with this. Let's check out Proverbs 13, chapter 13, verses 22. I'm going to read 3 different translations for you guys just so you can see how God's talking about this. So check this out, right? Now remember, Mark and I are talking about when he dies that him and his wife have already spoken about his money going to charity. Right? So check this one out. We're going to read Proverbs chapter 13 verse 22, and the first translation I'm going to read is the ERV version, and that's going to be the easy to read version. So check this out. It is good to have something to pass down to your grandchildren, but wealth hidden away by sinners will be given to those who live right. All right, let's move over to the Message version. A good life gets passed on to the grandchildren. Ill-gotten wealth ends up with good people. Okay, I love these translation, guys. So now we're going to read TPT, the Passion Translation. Check this out. The benevolent man leaves an inheritance that endures to his children's children, but the wealth of the wicked is treasured up for the righteous. Oh, I like the TPT the best, and so did my wife. That's why I really saved the best for last. I love that one a lot. So check this out, guys. Let's look at the word benevolent, right? This word means kind, right? Or kind-hearted. So you know what this shows me? God is saying here that if you don't do this, you're stingy. You're selfish. Point blank period. The benevolent man leaves an inheritance that reaches their children's children. So this is talking about their children and their grandchildren. Now me and Mark are just talking about he doesn't want to leave any money for his children, his children that he has right now. He doesn't have grandchildren just yet. So I thought this was particularly interesting because I'm thinking to myself, it's not a horrible thing to want to give your money to charity, but God actually has something to say about if you have lived a decent enough life to give your children something or leave them something, you should, right? Let's look at the second part of this, right? I like to call this the wealth of the sinner, right? So the second part of this says, but the wealth of the wicked is treasured up for the righteous. Me and my wife were talking about this the other day, and this was some good word, right? I told her, look at it like this. There's plenty of people in the world who they do things like they give to these charities or they give to these organizations that really push for feeding people and sheltering the homeless and just doing great things within the community. Now these people in their hearts on their own, they might not be giving money to homeless people they're seeing on the street, so they might not be giving money to anybody. And these people might not have much of a relationship with Jesus Christ or might not know God at all. Some of them might even be atheists. But these people use their money to give to purposes that actually glorify God. Because I'm going to tell you right now, if a person who is living somewhere and they don't know what they're going to eat every night, and then all of a sudden, due to some money that a person gave, this person gets to experience a meal, that glorifies God. That magnifies a person's hope. That starts to grow a person's faith. So that right there, that's what this verse means right here. It doesn't matter if a rich person knows God or he doesn't. That wealth right there, like, it is stored up for someone else who, if they get to experience a miracle, their faith and their hope will grow in such a way that that person will get to know God, which is why God is naming them righteous, because that means that that's a person who is right standing with God. How are we right standing with God? Through Jesus Christ. So I want you guys to see something here, because it's not a bad thing to say, like, I don't want you guys to say, oh, okay, Q, so are you saying that if someone wants to die and leave $2 million to St. Jude's Hospital or to a shelter that feeds homeless people or tries to shelter homeless people is bad? No, not at all. That would be a ridiculous argument. But what I am trying to say is that I want you guys to ask yourselves this question. Is giving an offering in death really about a generous offering? Now, I'm not saying that you can't premeditate and say, hey, when I die, I want all of this money and all of this wealth to go to this particular place or organization because they're just great and I believe in my heart that they're doing great things. No, I'm not saying that. That actually can happen and that's a great thing. But what I am saying is that if in your heart it's about, hey, I'd rather give all my money there than here because I don't want a spoiled kid, or I don't want a kid that comes into wealth and they don't know what it's like to work hard for their money and get their knees dirty and their clothes dirty, then that might be a heart check that you need to think about, because God says something different here. God says that a benevolent man, a kind-hearted man leaves an inheritance that touches his children's children. So not just one generation, but two. So we were just talking about Mark's first generation of children. We weren't talking about his grandchildren. And he was already saying, well, that money's going to go to charity. And I didn't argue with him there. I just thought this was a really interesting topic to kind of bring and talk to you guys about, because I have people that really like for me to talk about just really practical things, just to see like, hey, what does God think about this? So yeah, if you have lived a life that allows you to leave something for your children that can even stretch to your grandchildren or your great-grandchildren, then great. God says, hey, you should do that. Do that. It's a good thing. You know, I don't want us to get too caught up in the fact that we don't want our children to be spoiled children so we can't leave them money. Hey, it's an inheritance. And to be honest with you, we have an inheritance. Jesus Christ has promised believers an inheritance. And you know what? We don't have to work hard for that inheritance. God's actually prerequisite is quite easy. And to be honest, if we sit there and we deny our children their inheritance, why? Because they're our children, simply because we are their fathers, we are their parents. Like, we would be bad parents to do that. Jesus Christ doesn't do that to us. They can't be denied this inheritance because they're your children. They deserve it. It's already theirs. That's why God says a benevolent man, a good man, leaves an inheritance that touches 2 generations, because Jesus Christ has done that for us as well. So hey, I hope you guys enjoyed this talk. I hope you got something from it. It was a really awesome conversation that I ended up having with Mark. It actually probably lasted about a good hour, but I wanted to shorten it and just kind of give you guys a quick perspective on it, look into it, see what it was about. Hey, you guys meditate on it, and I want you guys to stay tuned. I'm going to be back with another one, and surely we're going to be jumping into a sermon series, so stay tuned, guys. What do I always say? Take care of yourselves, love one another, but most of all, love God. Peace.